Well, with more on this parliamentary impasse, we're now joined by the leader of the Green Party, Elizabeth May. Ms. May, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, Michael.
Listen, you spoke ahead of QP today, and you described what's happening right now in the Commons as an enormous waste of time and a waste of money. But, you know, for Conservatives, they argue they're trying to get documents which could expose Liberal corruption. Inconvenient as it is it not worthwhile to do that?
Well, we already have with the documents and the Auditor General's report enough information to know that it doesn't expose Liberal corruption. What we do have is absolutely, on the face of it, an unacceptable failure of the system to prevent conflict of interest decision-making within the board of Sustainable Development Technology Canada. Absolutely, we should get to the bottom of that. We should continue the work with the Auditor General and the Commissioner for Environment and Sustainable Development within the Office of the Auditor General. So what we know, Michael, is that during the COVID pandemic, a chair of the board of an organization that had existed since Jean Chrétien set it up, and I have to say it was well administered and well run when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister. It delivered seed funding to help start up technologies that were not yet proven so that they could get into the marketplace. So that's Sustainable Development Technology Canada. It has since been shut down, and the function, which is important to get this kind of money to emerging technologies in Canada, has now been taken over by the National Research Council. The unacceptable period occurred under the chairmanship of someone appointed by former Industry Minister Navdeep Bain. I can't find anything that suggests she was a Liberal Party supporter. She was appointed to an Economic Advisory Council by Stephen Harper. She was an advisor to Jim Flaherty, to former Prime Minister, the late Brian Mulroney. She was a very impressive, and it's not like she's passed away. She just has a reputation that's in tatters. She's a very impressive, self-made businesswoman in Canada who'd been the head of Home Depot, and once appointed as chair of the board of Sustainable Development Technology Canada, inexplicably, as far as I can see, forgot 101 ethics. If you're sitting on a board, you don't approve money to your own company. This is basic, but it isn't. It's being blown up in a way that makes me uncomfortable in Parliament. And it also, of course, I think, again, if the House of Commons asks for documents, the government should absolutely turn over all the documents. There are ways to handle this that are other than grinding Parliament to a halt. Sending the whole thing to committee now would certainly be helpful. We could shine quite a lot of light on this controversy with existing documents, with the Auditor General's existing reports, and what we know about what transpired.
If that goes to committee, when you say you're finding it hard to find the accusations and what you're seeing, the accusations being made by Conservatives, so what then do you make of the government argument that Conservatives are essentially playing political games right now?
Well, I mean, clearly everybody is. I don't understand why. I don't see, and I don't, unfortunately, I admit this right off the top, Michael, I don't buy Karina Gould's argument that this is a charter infringement. The Parliament of Canada has the right to request documents, and documents should be turned over to the Parliament of Canada when requested. I don't think that's open to debate. It isn't likely, from what I've seen from the RCMP review so far and from any public comments from the RCMP, there isn't at this point an allegation of any criminality. I don't really see, given that I've gone through the Auditor General's report, the Commissioner for Environment and Sustainable Development report, at this point, unless there's something to come to light, and I can't begin to imagine what it would be, actually, that could amount to criminality. Money went to companies that exaggerated what they would do for the environment with the funds they got. A lot of these companies are companies like Suncor and oil sands companies that exaggerated the benefits of carbon capture and storage. That's one of the things the Conservatives would want to fund, because they keep saying technology is the solution and not carbon pricing. It's amazing to have so much hot air in Parliament about climate when none of it actually addresses the climate crisis. So, in short, yes, both sides are playing politics. I think it's an overreach to suggest that turning over the documents would violate anyone's charter rights. By all means, the government should turn over the documents, but I don't think that Parliament needs to grind to a halt on this question of possible infringement of privilege when we could send it straight to committee and begin the work there so that Parliament could get on with passing much needed legislation which is stuck in the queue.
And to be clear for people at home, everybody's agreed to let committee look at this except for the Conservatives at this point. But you're talking about politics not only from the government but from the official opposition as well. So that does underline a bit of the toxicity that we've seen ever since Parliament came back last month. Do you think it is time then to dissolve this House and hold another election?
No, I don't. I mean, right now, by the way, all of my constituents are rather involved in picking the new government for the government of British Columbia. We're in an election in British Columbia. We're in an election in New Brunswick. We're in an election in Saskatchewan. And right now, I think Canadians did elect a government. And of course, there's 5 parties in Parliament. We don't elect a prime minister. And the focus is always on, well, we've had enough of Justin Trudeau. Let's move on and pick the next guy. Wait a minute. We elect a Parliament. We have 5 parties right now operating in the Parliament of Canada. And for the most part, we are able to cooperate and get things done. I love it when we really do cooperate and get things done. But there's legislation that my constituents, there's put forward by the Minister of Transport, to give you one example, because it doesn't get much airtime, Bill C-33 for railway safety and to improve the management in our harbors and ports. I was successful in getting some amendments to that bill through. It's sitting in the queue waiting for 3rd reading. A report stage we haven't even gotten through, and 3rd reading. Then it has to go to the Senate. The amount of waste of time and energy from everyone involved to advance legislation that the country needs, because we've been in an endless cycle of hyperbolic hyperpartisanship, is really unhelpful. And I don't think it's time for an election because, well, obviously 3 provinces would be significantly disadvantaged in terms of their democratic process if we pulled the plug on this government tomorrow.
Ms. May, I only have a minute left, but I do have to ask you, because I'm sure you saw that article in the Journal de Montréal questioning whether or not you are ready to lead the Greens once again into another federal campaign. Are you ready to do that, considering how hard a campaign can be?
No, of course I am. I was rather, I was surprised that the reporter didn't ask me the question and relied on who knows who anonymous people. I am extraordinarily fit. I am able to do a workload that would crush someone half my age. I am very, very fortunate, and I'm not the least bit worried about my health going into another federal election campaign.
Ms. May, always good to speak with you. Thank you for that.
By the way, Michael, I'm blessed that I can say such a thing. I am very, very lucky, and I know it. And that's why I have the work I have to do. I'm quite certain I have to do that work because I'm here and capable of doing it.
Well, I'm glad you're on our program expressing that. Elizabeth May, thank you for the time.
Thank you.